Hello everybody, MrCamoGaming here, bringing you guys another No Man's Sky video. Now today, in the last episode rather, we talked about what No Man's Sky actually is. This is of course an introduction to No Man's Sky. It's to let you guys know about what the game actually is, what you can do in it, and how the game actually works. Today we're going to be addressing the topic of what you can actually do in No Man's Sky. So one of the main questions at the minute within the community is what can you actually do in No Man's Sky? This is especially coming from new people who have just discovered the game and have seen like the gameplay where they show off the environments in the game and the massive 18 quintillion planets, but some people don't know exactly what you're going to be doing in this massive universe. What they've seen is basically just the environments and not what you're actually going to be killing. Are you going to be trading things? Are you going to be collecting resources like in Minecraft? Are you going to be building shelters? And so today I thought I would go over everything that you can do in the game that we know currently, because we don't necessarily know everything that is going to be in the game, because they have been very quiet about what you're going to be able to do basically, and I kind of like that. But getting on to the actual topic, the main goal of the game obviously is to reach the center of the galaxy, and this is going to be the main goal for most people. You don't have to go to the center of the galaxy, there's nothing saying that you have to, but you will kind of want to if you want to get better stuff constantly, because the closer that you get to the center of the galaxy, the weirder the planets are, there are rarer and better resources for better upgrades, there's going to be more crazy wildlife, there's a lot of reasons why you're going to want to go towards the center basically. But if you don't want to go to the center, you might just want to stay on the outer edge, just explore the planets in necessarily one solar system even. Then there are a lot of things that you can do if you don't want to achieve this main goal. Now there are four main kind of classes that they've announced that you can kind of fit into, and these aren't classes like in an MMO where you say, right, I'm going to play as this class, and you have to pick it like on a menu. You can literally just play like that if you really want to. There is no option to play as any of these classes. It's just how they've kind of summed up the game so that it's easier to understand. So you could play as one class, and of course this is all your choice, or you could play as like a bit of all four of them, and you can do whatever you want basically in the universe. You don't have to do anything. Now, the four classes that they've kind of categorized all of these things into is Fighter, Trader, Scientist, and Explorer. And all of these playstyles will mean that you'll have to kind of adjust the amount of resources that you put into everything, and you'll have to figure out like how you're going to play the game, what resources you need to upgrade certain things so that you can perform these classes better. So for example, with Fighter, you're going to want to invest in weapons, and I'm going to talk about that a bit more in just a minute. And so you're going to need to figure out what resources do I need to get better weapons. And so let's actually get into detail about each of these classes. So the first class that we're going to talk about, the first kind of class of playstyle, is Fighter. Now this is obviously going to be a very popular way to play the game, because a lot of games at the minute are based around fighting, and first-person shooters are a very popular genre. Just shooting games in general is very popular, and so Fighter is going to be a very popular way to play this game. And it is a viable way that you can play the game, of course, but as you'll see a bit later on, it is kind of a bit difficult. So as I've said, you can play the game as a fighter, and this means that you'll basically just be killing things that come in your way. So this could be creatures on the planet's surface, this could be sentinels. We don't know if sentinels can actually go into space yet, or whether they'll only be on the planet's surface, and so you might just want to kill all of the sentinels on a planet, which again might not be the best idea. And then even you might just want to go into space battles, just fly around in your ship, upgrade the weapons to the max, and then just go around in your ship in space and kill all of the freighter ships, all of the space stations, but we'll talk about all of this in just a second. So one thing that a fighter will want to do is kill wildlife. Now on all of the planets there are going to be thousands of different animals, thousands of different kinds of wildlife, whether that be plants or animals. And some of these will be passive, some of these will be neutral, and some of them will be hostile. Now if you really want to, you can just go around and kill all of the wildlife. However, if you do this too much, you'll attract the attention of sentinels. Now sentinels are self-replicating robots, we haven't talked about these too much yet, and their job is to protect the universe. So if you go around and mess with the nature in the universe and how everything's so balanced, if you mine a planet too much, or if you kill all of the wildlife on a planet, the sentinels will come and try and kill you because you are disrupting the balance of nature. And you can kill these sentinels, of course, but if you kill them, your wanted level, which is kind of how it works, it's like a 5-star kind of GTA system, your wanted level will increase, and there will be bigger and more aggressive sentinels that will come and attack you. And you can of course just kill waves of these if you really want to, and you can also escape them if you're really lucky, but they will be quite aggressive. But anyways, back onto the killing wildlife. There is no real reward for killing wildlife, but there is something that you can do to get some sort of reward. On your multi-tool, which is the weapon in the game, it's the main kind of gun that you're going to be using to kill everything, mine everything with, there's going to be a scanner on the multi-tool, and basically if you scan the animal, you will get a discovery in your inventory. And if you take this discovery to a beacon, which are just randomly scattered on the planets, you can upload the discovery to the Atlas. Now, the Atlas is a giant diamond-shaped structure that stores all of your discoveries, and it stores everyone else's discoveries in the game, and it just stores them all into one place, basically. And presumably there's going to be a way to access this. But anyways, when you upload a discovery to the Atlas, you will receive some units. Now, units are the game's currency, and so you can use these units to then buy resources. Now, if you're going to play as a full-on fighter, you're going to want to spend these units on resources to upgrade your multi-tool weapon as well as your ship, because both your multi-tool and ship have weapons, and when you upgrade your ship's weapons, of course if you upgrade the multi-tool's weapons you can then go and kill sentinels and wildlife more, but when you upgrade your ship's weapons you can then go to the real battle in space. Now, in space there are several different AI ships that you'll encounter, from pirates who will try and attack passing trading ships, just friendly ships, to freighters which will carry massive amounts of resources but are friendly, and so they won't attack you unless being attacked. Now, you can choose either one of these sides basically, so you could choose to defend the freighters from the space pirates, and you could kill the space pirates, and what this will do is it will give you a reputation with the friendly alien race. So the freighters that you protected, you'll gain reputation with whichever alien race is kind of in control of the ships. However, you can also do the opposite, and you can help the pirates to attack the ships. Now, attacking the freighter ships, because the freighters have a lot of loot on them, of course, if you help them to attack these, you will probably get more rewards. However, your reputation with that alien race will go down. And so this may cause, if you encounter like an NPC of one of these alien races, then you will not be able to buy things from him, and he will stop you from talking to him or something like that. He might try and kill you even. But of course as well, whichever one you attack, your reputation with them will go down. And so it kind of works like that. You've got to choose which side you're going to be on. And once your ship is massively upgraded as well, you could even try to take out a space station. Now, this is definitely not going to be something you want to do alone. You're going to need some allies with you. And if you ally with a kind of faction enough, then you can get AI ships in to help you. And you could attack a massive space station with these AI ships, and you can actually destroy the space station. Although it is an incredibly difficult task because they are well protected and you'll be heavily fired upon if you try to attack. But if you do somehow manage to succeed, you'll earn a massive amount of rewards, and so it will be worth it. The final thing I just want to quickly mention is that one way that you can get weapon upgrades is with blueprints, and blueprints you'll be able to find from trading stations, from space stations. Like I mentioned, space stations, you can destroy them, but they are like a parking zone, and they've got traders in there that you can buy resources from, and we're about to move on to trading in just a moment, but I just wanted to mention the blueprints. So the second class that we're going to talk about that you can revolve your gameplay around is Trader. Now, trading is going to play a big part in No Man's Sky, and it is a rather complicated system for such a simple thing like collecting resources and then selling them on for units in return. But this kind of trading system that they've got in place is going to change the way that players think about collecting the resources and selling them off. So one thing that a trader is going to need is resources. Now, there are a few different ways that you can collect resources. There's two that we know so far. The first one is to buy resources from trading AI robots, basically. So you can go to a trader somewhere in the universe, wherever you are, you can interact with them, and you might see quite a rare resource going for a low price. Then you could buy that and sell it on for its normal or a higher price, and then you get more units in return, and that's how you would collect your units. And then the other way is to, of course, mine the resources manually. Now, there's two different places you can mine resources. One of them is from asteroids in space, so there will be a lot of different asteroids in space, and these will all contain resources. If you shoot them, you can then collect them, and then the second way is to actually go down onto the planet and collect them there. And some of these will come in the form of like crystals jutting out from the ground, and these will give you less resources, and they'll probably be more common as well. And then the other way you can do it is to use more heavy weaponry to mine out caves and rocks, and this will give you a larger quantity of resource, and they will most likely be rarer, but they will be in large quantities, and you will get them either way. You can get resources either way like that. And then once you have the resources, you can take them to a trader and sell them on for whichever price you feel is necessary. It could be quite a high price, it could be just kind of like a middle price, and then you will get units in return, obviously, for selling them off. And then with these units, you can buy upgrades for either your suit, multi-tool, or ship. Now, of course, that sounds relatively simple. You're just getting money so that you can then upgrade all of your tools so that you can then get to the center of the universe more quickly. However, if you are going to get into the trading business as kind of like your main role, it is a lot more complicated than that. Because there are several things that you've got to consider. So first of all, you can consider which upgrades you're going to buy. Now, if you're thinking about doing trading, you are going to need a lot of resources, and so you might want to invest money into making the cargo space in your ship even bigger. And another thing that you're going to want to consider is because you can equip gadgets onto your suit, your multi-tool, and your ship, there are other spaces there, so if you don't use those gadgets, you're going to have more space for resources, basically. So you've got to kind of decide, do I want, like, a cool jetpack, underwater breathing, stuff like that, or do I want loads and loads of resources to sell on? You've got to kind of manage your inventory in that way between gadgets and resources, and basically, you're going to need to consider that, and you're going to need to invest in cargo space for your ship, as I mentioned, so that you can carry more goods more quickly from planet to planet. Now, another thing that makes this more complicated that you're going to need to consider, and this is the thing that I talked about in the last video, is that in some systems, there will be no resources. So, for example, let's talk about plutonium. Let's say in one universe there is a ton of plutonium, like it's literally everywhere on all of the planets. The planet's surface is made of plutonium, it's all just red. And then in another planet, there is no plutonium. There's literally none on any of the planets in the system. If you took your resources from your system where there's a ton of it to that system where there's none of it, then you can sell it off for a lot higher because there's literally none of it there, and so more people are going to want to buy it in that system, and so you're going to be able to sell it for a lot higher price because there is no plutonium there and people are going to be in high demand for it, and it's not going to be there. And so if you sell it on there, you're going to get a lot more money, which means that players are going to have to kind of figure out their own trading routes that they're going to take, which adds this massive new dimension to trading and how people are going to consider their resources. So now let us move on to the third role, which is Scientist. Now, Scientist, there isn't too much to talk about with this role, but I will talk about everything that we kind of know if you want to kind of play as a sciencey kind of person. Now, first of all, there are going to be ships that are very futuristic, and so if you're into science, you may want some of these ships. I'm not really sure why. So the third main role that you're going to be able to play is as a scientist. Now, there's not a load that we know about scientist, and it kind of links in with exploration a little bit, and so we're going to kind of go from scientist to exploration. So consider this as two roles in one, basically, so the scientist and the explorer. But basically, if you're playing as more of a scientist kind of person, you're going to be wanting to discover wildlife, and because there's hundreds of thousands of different creatures in the game, because all of the creatures are procedurally generated, which means that they kind of just take pieces, they take the rules of the game, and then they generate animals based on those rules. So, for example, you know, if it's in a water, give it a tail because it's a fish, basically. It's kind of rules like that. It's really simple rules, but there's going to be basically hundreds of thousands of different creatures, and maybe if you're playing as a scientist, you're going to want to discover these creatures, and there is a lot of money to be had for discovering different creatures. I've seen quite a lot of money. I don't know if this was maybe just the test build, but there was quite a lot of money for discovering new creatures, and so scientists may want to use this role because it seems like quite a high-paying job in units. Alright then, so now let us move on to exploration, which is arguably the biggest part of No Man's Sky. There are 18 quintillion planets to be explored, which is a lot, and no one will ever be able to explore every single one, which is quite sad, but we need to explore as many of them as we possibly can, and playing as an explorer will allow you to do this. When you discover something as an explorer, you are allowed to name it whatever you want. So for example, let's say that you find a new species of animal on a planet. This kind of again links in with the scientist one. You can name it whatever you want. You can name it like a really scientific name. They're already kind of named in Latin kind of names, but if you want to name it really scientifically, you could even like look up how scientists name animals and then base your naming off of those kind of scientific rules in the real world. However, you can also just call it penis if you really want to, but it's not very funny, let's just face it, guys. Now, there is tons to be explored, and you may be thinking, well, if there's 18 quintillion planets, surely I'm eventually going to come across a planet that is the exact same as, like, the first one that I ever saw. And that is very, very unlikely to happen just because of the amount of environments that have been procedurally generated within the game. So you're constantly going to be encountering planets that are covered in different coloured grass. Some of them will be kind of like desert land, some of them will be rainforest, just lush with wildlife. Some of them will literally just be an entire ocean, and that is the planet. Maybe with like one island on it where you could land your ship, but the entire planet as an ocean. I mean, that is a possibility within the game, and maybe there's also a possibility that none of the planet has any sort of water on it. I guess that's kind of like a desert planet, but you guys get the point. And another thing that is really exciting is that you could even document on like the internet somewhere. You could create a website, or you do it on YouTube even. I was planning on doing something like this on YouTube, where you kind of document like a system's planets and what kind of creatures are there, because there's a very massive amount of detail that's gone into this game. So, for example, there are day and night cycles, obviously. The way the day and night cycles work is that the planet orbits around an axis, just like it does in real life. So it won't just transition from night to day. If you wait on a planet long enough and then fly into space, you'll come off at a different side of the planet, because the planet is rotating on its own axis, which is, of course, it's very realistic in such a sci-fi kind of game, but is very cool. Now, what this means for you is that eventually day is going to become night, and you may find that things change on a night compared to the day, and then you could document this on your YouTube video or on your website or wherever you're going to do this. And that's one of the things you could do with it as an explorer. You don't even have to document it. You could even just kind of remember it and then be like, oh right, so I know what this planet is like when I come back to it. Now, something else that can make exploring very difficult is that some of the planets have extreme weather conditions. Now, this includes it being just extremely hot or extremely cold, and we're talking about 700 degrees Celsius and minus 150 degrees Celsius as well. And then sometimes you may even encounter toxic and radioactive planets, where if you stay on them for too long, then your suit will not be able to handle it and you'll start to be poisoned, essentially. And you will need to upgrade your suit so that you can handle these conditions. So you won't even be able to go to every planet right off the bat. You are going to need to perform some upgrades to your suit in order to even explore maybe like a third of the entire planets in the game. Which, of course, you know, that's a decent 6 quintillion that you can still explore. It's not that big of a deal. Now, your suit is going to be a big part of exploring, and you may want to consider upgrading it very rapidly if you are going to be an explorer, because you can do things like sprinting, jumping, swimming, and flying with a jetpack when you upgrade your suit, basically. And you can, again, upgrade all of these things so that you could run faster, you could be able to jetpack for longer or higher, you could be able to dive into deeper depths of the ocean. So if you were planning on exploring the oceans in the game, which there is oceans, by the way, if you wanted to explore the oceans, you are going to need to upgrade your suit so you can go to low depths. If you don't upgrade your suit enough, then you will not be able to go to these depths and you will just die from the pressure, killing you. You'll be able to maybe jump higher just as normal without a jetpack, maybe you can just jump. It's all stuff like this you need to consider when you're going to be exploring, as well as your ship. You're going to need quite a quick ship with a very good warp drive, because if you don't have a good warp drive, you won't be able to warp between different star systems, and explore them all very quickly. And so if you have a really powerful warp drive, you'll be able to zoom between these star systems a lot more quickly. So guys, that brings us to the end of this video. In this video, I've explained a lot of things that you can do in No Man's Sky. These are just some of the things that they've told us. There could be a lot more things that we can do. As I've said, the developers have been very quiet about everything we can do in this game, and I have still managed to make a decent 18-minute video on the stuff that you can do in the game, and there could still be a lot more. There could only be a little bit more as well, of course, but there could still be a lot more that we don't know yet. But hopefully you guys now know some of the things you can do in No Man's Sky. The next video will be going more in detail with how planets work. So you heard that I mentioned about like the toxic and radioactive atmospheres on some planets. We're going to be going into detail about all of these conditions and how the planets actually generate and work in the next video on an introduction to No Man's Sky. But anyways guys, thank you for watching this video. If you have enjoyed it, remember to smash that like button, and don't forget to subscribe for more gaming content. Remember to follow me on Facebook, Twitter and Twitch, links in the description below, and I'll see you guys in another video. So until then, ciao.